Matthias wrote in saying, I often hear people say you can't have democracy without free speech, but I don't really understand that. Can you explain? Right. So here's the confusion some people have. Democracy is voting, put quite simply. Representative democracy, different types of democracy, the will of the people being reflected in policy and our elected officials. That seems different than speech. So why is free speech so important in democracy? Basically, in the simplest terms, and different people will define this different ways, in simplest terms, if you don't have a right to free speech, if you don't have a censorship-free society, you are not going to have full discussions of all of the political issues, of the candidates that are out there. You might not have all sides equally heard in talking about what their positions are about any particular issue. As soon as you don't have total free speech, that, short of course, direct incitements to violence, which can be criminalized as they are in the United States, when you can't have a full and open debate about political issues, then the voting that you are participating in is not properly and fully democratic. If there are not open airings of political positions and full debate that is unrestricted by limits on speech, then the voting that takes place is not fully democratic, either because ideas were not fully fleshed out or heard, or maybe even suppressed to some degree. And that's sort of the gist of it. And you can get more micro and say, well, does it apply to voters having speech, or does it apply to the candidates having speech, or does it apply to media fairness? And the answer is sort of all of the above. It can apply to all of those things, but at its most core level, if speech is limited, then the participation in that democracy is not really full and fair, and thus you don't really have that democracy that you claim to have. That's the idea, and we could really flesh it out more, Matthias, but that's generally speaking what we mean by without free speech, you don't really have democracy.